Nick, we're talking about the sequel to The Matrix here, The Matrix Reloaded, which I think benefits from something that few sequels have, which is they have a lot of great cast additions. And I'm specifically talking about Hugo Weaving. So today, everyone, we're talking the sequel as we continue our journey through the Matrix movies.
Reloaded
time. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from Goethe Reviews.
I'm Nick from the SciFi Filmcast, and thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, subscribing, telling your friends about the show. And like I said, it's a simple criticism of the movie. Hope you get to enjoy it, and maybe if like, comment down below. Follow the show on all social medias like Twitter and Instagram. And today we're going to talk about the great anticipated sequel of The Matrix. When it came out in '99, took them what? 4 years.
4 years for two films.
They filmed two films at the same time, kind of like Superman 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. We're talking about The Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah, so that film is, this is set 6 months after the events of the first movie. Neo has grown accustomed to the idea of being thought of as the savior of all mankind, even though he still doubts the prophecy of Morpheus. When they learn that the machines are digging to Zion, they set out to fulfill the prophecy and end the war once and for all. But there's one major obstacle, or rather, several. It appears that the destroyed Agent Smith has returned with the ability to replicate himself by overriding other programs, and he's out for vengeance.
Okay, so I want to let you know, Roger Deakins, one of the greatest accomplished cinematographers of all time, regards as one of his favorite cinematographers is Bill Pope, who's a cinematographer for this film. And he always idolizes and likes and appreciates Bill Pope. And real, this is the movie that Bill Pope outdid himself.
Yeah, and it's funny that Bill Pope looks back on the Matrix sequels with kind of a disdainment because the Wachowskis went and did a lot of like studying on like film art forms because of this big massive hit of the Matrix, and they wanted to try a lot of different things, and so it ended up with them taking a lot of takes, something that they had learned from other filmmakers that had really worked, and he got this kind of like, I hated working on this movie because I had to keep doing takes over and over and over again, and it bothered him so much to the point where he kind of looks back on these things with disdainment. But I would argue that this film is better than The Matrix 1, and I would argue that this film is the best of the Matrix films. I'm talking all four, the original trilogy and animated. This is the best one.
It's one of those things that we appreciate as filmmakers and film watchers, is it has all the ingredients to enjoy a movie. You have story, you have content, you have you have action, and you have all the valleys of emotions that you experience. Not to mention you expand the universe as well. Yeah, I would regard it almost like Empire Strikes Back to Star Wars. You're expanding the universe, you ground it a little bit, but you're getting more characters and that are interesting and more diabolical as well. Did they build a highway for this?
I think it was a 2-mile stretch of something. They either closed the highway or they built. I think they built a highway section. Yeah, and they would have to do every sequence across 2 miles and then turn all the vehicles around and get them moving the other direction again to do another take of it. And that's probably one of the reasons Bill Pope went mad. But there was the idea that originally there was a town that was going to try and donate their highway for the film, and it's like, you don't understand, this highway sequence took more time to shoot than most feature films do. I think it was like 3 months that they spent on this highway shooting the sequence. And if you think about it, it is the last half of the movie. Like, this movie at about an hour, 20 minutes, heads to the highway, and we don't leave the highway for most of the rest of the movie.
But like I said, what we say about summer blockbusters is you get your action, but in the middle it has to be some kind of car chase. Right. Another thing about this, it's bookended by, of course, Carrie-Anne Moss, Trinity. Just like the first one, The Matrix, we get the Trinity starts it and she ends it. Trinity starts it, but it's a little bit of the end of it. Yeah. And also, it's the ending same like Matrix, which is what is something that they can't calculate in The Matrix is love. And love is what is going to break up the entire thing.
Yeah, we had a lot of really interesting conversations, my wife and I, after finishing watching this movie last night, which was kind of along the lines of like, Is Neo still the one? Is he the one because Trinity loves him? Like that was her prophecy, was she would fall in love with the one.
There's a lot of fan theories that actually Agent Smith is the one, and Neo is not, because you're not. But then he's like, we get more what Agent Smith really is.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of like breakdown of like where these characters are moving and who they are through the lens of other people. Is Neo the one because Morpheus believes him to be? Is Neo the one because Trinity loves him? Right. Is because he certainly doesn't really. I think he believes it in himself, but he doesn't believe that he's capable of actually doing anything about it.
Right. Of course, like a lot of fan theories on maybe Agent Smith, like here we're going to visually tell you what the hell a virus is in a computer system.
Yeah.
And that's what Agent Smith is. It's transcript. He's outside, he's broken, and we get the exposition with the Oracle telling about there's programs here not doing what they're supposed to be doing and all that stuff. So we get the buys into the world, because when you're sci-fi, you have to do a lot of world building. But of course, Agent Smith is a virus.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the strengths of this film, is that while this film's ambition might have been too much for some viewers, it tries to do a lot of stuff in a short period of time. And that's been always something I've loved about the Wachowskis. They're some of my favorite filmmakers, and I love their ambitious films, even if I don't think that their ambition fully succeeds. This is a movie that asks a lot of questions and has a lot of minute levels of things that you could make a whole movie about. When she says that, there's a virus not supposed to be what it's doing, every story you hear about ghosts and vampires, that's all. That could be a whole movie. Is a ghost or a vampire that's actually a program in the Matrix.
Now there's a vampires exist in the Matrix. You can make a horror movie of it. Yeah. Some of the graphics don't really stand up to what we have used to now, but at the time it was really good. It used to be, can you decipher where Keanu Reeves' character is a computer or not? Well, yeah, I can tell what he's CGI.
There's a few gummy moments in the movie that we pointed out last night, and I think it's probably a 30% aged CG. I think about 60 to 70% of this movie, the CG still holds up well enough. There's about 30% where it gets that gumminess to him, like especially where Neo is picking up Morpheus and the Keymaker on top of the crash. Yeah. That's a specifically gummy moment.
And like a lot of where they were on stilts or the suspended from ropes and strings and that stuff.
Yeah. So there's some moments that I think really work really well, and I think it's specifically we're using the real actors and integrating them into the CG works better than the full CG mock-up of the people. That's when it doesn't work as well. Like when you see Neo flying in those scenes and you see all the cars like exploding behind him because he's flying so fast, I think that shot looks pretty good still. Right. But it's just when you lose the complete gumminess and like the fight with all the Smiths, you can tell what scenes her sequences from that fight are full CG. They're just gummy men flying around.
I would say the introduction of new characters that we didn't really know about really enriches the movie. You have the Merovingian, his wife or girlfriend. You have the twins. Well, I don't think
the twins are great.
The twins are, they don't have to do it. Just shut up and kick ass, right?
They're a good action plot vehicle. They just kind of get in there, they kick ass for a little while, and that's all they're there for.
My main critique is contrast. Everybody dresses dark. How can you tell the twins? Well, they're going to wear
everything.
They're all white, right? Yeah, as well as we get, not only that, we get the architect. Now, I think Sean Connery is supposed to be the architect. They threw a lot of money at him. He initially said yes, and then at the last minute, he pulled back. He didn't want to do it. Probably didn't understand what the hell.
Yeah, he said he didn't get it, but he also didn't get Gandalf. So, there's,
and he did Zardoz, for God's sake.
That's the weird thing, Oh my God, yeah. I still don't get Zardoz. He gave up this role and he gave up Gandalf because he didn't get it. And then he chose to do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And it's like, would he have still been working after 2003 if he had picked these movies instead of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? Because he gave up acting after that. That was when he stopped. He did some voice work. But like, where would his career have gone with those last 2 decades of his life?
So, right, and you get a lot of introduction to get really, we're talking about, enriching the story, and as well as things that we didn't really know we needed, like the Keymaster, you brought him up, and something like, wow, we never knew about that in the first one, but yeah, if we have that, then we have short ways to get away. I love the visual representation of backdoor entry of programs. I love it.
Yeah, the whole, you can criticize all you want this film for giving you things that maybe you could criticize you don't need, but everything in this movie feels natural to the world, which is something very rare to do. That hallway is a great idea that's implemented very well. Then you also get the introduction of Zion, which that was one of my big things when I saw the first Matrix movie. Was the first time I saw it, I did not like the first Matrix movie because I said, why do I care about these people? We don't even know their home. We haven't seen Zion. Like, that's an important element, is that this is the last stand of humanity. Yeah. That's where my mind went. That's one of the reasons I criticized the first movie, was I just didn't get the care for this last group of people. Seeing Zion adds a lot. That adds a lot of care for me in the movie. And it's also a complete juxtaposition. We get all these cool dressed people in the Matrix walking around with their shades, and in Zion, it's a sweaty fight orgy.
Which I have, one of my criticism is, do we need the dance sequence? It goes on a little bit.
It does go on a little while. The only reason I noticed it went on a while was because I watched it with my parents once when I was younger, and I was like, "Oh, they're still banging.
They're still kind of showy.
I want to fast forward a bit." But
it's your movie. You want people dance? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it takes anything away from the movie.
No, it doesn't.
It does. It is noticeably longer than it needs to be. Yeah, I have no defense for it, but I don't really have a problem with it either.
Exactly. Beginning of the movie is security guards punching the clock. And that tells you right there, again, visually tells you without doing a lot of exposition, what the Matrix is, right?
Yep.
You go to your work, you're punching a clock. You don't really want to do your job, but you have to do it too. So you have the introduction of, remind you what the story is visually without telling you.
Well, I like when that scene comes back up again because there's the security guard falling asleep when the guy's like, don't do that. Hey, you got time to do that when you're home. And he's like, why do it now at home when I can do it here? You are doing it here. You are asleep.
You are asleep. So it's wonderful crafted introduction. Yeah. Also the emphasis of motorcycle driving foreshadowing.
That's true. That's true. I think the idea was that Carrie-Anne Moss did a lot of motorcycle training for this film for one sequence, and it maybe was a thing where they were like, let's put another scene in of her doing that.
But of course, you can have her in the car chase with the motorcycle. You need an introduction that you understand this character can handle a motorcycle, and you get it right away. Yeah. So it's great foreshadowing. Of course, it's not really foreshadowing; it's in the movie.
And shadowing.
and shadowing as well. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. There's a lot of we got to talk about, I think, Naomi too, who Jada Pinkett Smith is introduced in this film.
I think Aaliyah was supposed to be that character.
Who? Oh, Aaliyah was supposed to be in the film, and I don't think it was supposed to be Naomi. She was supposed to be, I think,
Monica Bellucci's.
Yeah, she was one of those characters, and I think they filmed some scenes and had to replace. But Jada Pinkett Smith, I was really only aware of her from the opening of Scream 2. Like that was my only real connective tissue where I remembered her. And then I became enamored with the character watching this movie and then playing her as one of the two characters you play in Enter the Matrix, the video game.
Right.
And I think like the integration of her character, she fits really well in the group. It's not something where she's a noticeable add-on. It feels like she was there during the first Matrix movie, just on some other mission.
It's like what I always say, it's a barometer character. Like if she's calm, we're all kind. All right, if she can handle it, all right, we're it seems pretty relevant. But when she gets nervous, then we're like, well, yeah. So it's kind of like what I always call a barometer character.
And she also gets this great kind of love triangle-ish thing with her, Morpheus and Harry Lennox. Who I think
it's not
Harry
really
Lennox
salty.
Really,
it's just another.
It's just kind of like she was with one guy, now she's with the other. I mean, it's one of those things where you could almost laugh at the dialogue when Carrie-Anne Moss says she was with him, now she's with him, and you're like, okay,
how high school is it?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's the other thing is the dialogue is not really. There's a lot of exposition dumping that kind of, gets a little leggy. But the speeches and everything, even Lawrence Fishburne's speeches, but that gets okay because of the environment we're in. It's almost like this is part of the world where you kind of accept a lot of the exposition dumping.
And what I also think too is knowing that this was the second film of a 3-part series. And knowing that they were shot back to back, 2 and 3, you also get the sense that this is the last film in the series. So that when they announce that the machines are digging, you're like, this is the end game. Like this is it. We are heading towards the closing of our story. And that gives everything kind of a finale-esque feeling in the second movie.
Right.
Like that great speech. I do love the speech that Morpheus gives when he's on top of the thing in Zion and he's like, we are still here. And I oomph to that whole thing because I think that's a great sequence, but it's also something that you'd almost feel him yelling before they run into battle, not before they dance.
But
it gives everything in the film kind of a completion. Like everything is kind of winding down, even though we still have 4 hours and 2 movies left,
So you get a lot of the experience of, oh my God, this has happened before. We're reprogramming, we're reloading. But you understand the Matrix can't calculate human emotions. And that's probably why it's going to be successful a defeat. It's not really going to do. Nobody's really going to win, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we like, even like Empire Strikes Back. The good guys get the punch in the nose. Here, the good guys are going to get the punch in the nose, right?
Exactly, yeah. But back to what you said about the dialogue, Total Film did say that this film has the single worst line of dialogue in an American Hollywood picture. And I'm going to quote it here. I wrote it down so I can read it. This is from The Architect when he says, "Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix." Yeah. And I kind of agree that line is terrible. I don't care. I'm totally for it. I think I praise the scene with the Architect. I praise that scene because in what other Hollywood-style R-rated sci-fi movie would you be able to say forget the action part. These two guys are going to talk in a room, and they're going to talk about philosophy in a room for 20 minutes. No other movie was able to get away with that.
Yeah, creepy Santa Claus.
Creepy Santa Claus. Exactly. I would give.
But he's explaining how they can't calculate human emotion, and that's a problem for them. And rather than, you're unbalanced, rather than that, they were going to make every opportunity to mathematically do this way. Do it this way. Mathematically do it this way. And Keanu says, no, I'm going to go off my emotions. Where he's like, you idiot.
Yeah. And that's maybe that's what I like about that scene, though, is that scene gives you, it's kind of like the short in the Animatrix. It gives you the beginning, the middle, and the end. I mean, this is basically them telling you how the entire film trilogy is going to go. And and again, the choice is already made. We're trying to understand it. And I think that's why they can wax philosophical for 20 minutes on screen, and that just doesn't bother me.
Where you sit there and go,
yeah, I'm just eating it up. Same with the scene with the Merovingian, where when they're sitting there, that's one of my other favorite scenes. I would take all the dialogue and the headiness of this movie, even if they cut out all the action, because I think the action's great, but it's the ambitious style that they have to bring a Hollywood movie to philosophy school and teach us something and have that discussion. And I think it does it on a grander scale than the first Matrix movie, because the first Matrix movie really asks one central question:
what's real?
Yeah.
What is real?
And this film asks that question surrounded by a whole.
How do we get out of it? Right. How do you how do you defeat this system? So you're fighting the man.
Exactly.
Right. So
there it is.
Like I said, always think, work with your style. That's one of the things everybody's going to criticize you first for is your style, and then kind of bring in the people into your world. And then you buy into the style. Of course they wear sunglasses and it's dark out. Of course they're going to wear, their dress and trench coats and leather and latex to a dance meet, to a meeting, and you buy into it wholeheartedly. And you get a lot of style. That's what works with it. I like the style of it, and then we're going to get our philosophy at the end. Or sometimes.
Yeah, there's several layers to that. And that, again, I think the Matrix 1, I feel like, had to put the action above everything else.
Well, you had to buy
it had to
get him in there.
Introduce people and say, don't worry, there's action here. And I think this film isn't as afraid to do that, because we've already got our 2 movies. We've already shot them. You can't take our money away, Warner Brothers. And this being, again, the highest grossing R-rated film of all time at this point, was a big deal. And that was able to usher in. It's like we say, every 10 years you have to have a major release sci-fi film that does well, or else the genre just goes away for 10 years. And that's what The Matrix was it was our late 90s, early 2000s, like, hey, just a reminder, sci-fi is still pretty awesome.
Right, and like we said, 1999, this is the epics, the apex of what is reality's noir sci-fi. And here we're going to not only just stay there, but we're going to expand what is action sci-fi in the early 2000s.
Exactly, what else was there? I think a couple other odd things that I really found intriguing about this film was that they shot it back to back, and it's less of the 2 films being shot at the same time, and it seems like they mostly shot all of this film and then moved on to all of Revolutions. The reason I say that is because it does appear like Gloria Foster, who played the Oracle in this film, she did die before she finished shooting her scenes, and they were able to recast for the 3rd film and kind of give like a good reason for why she looks a little bit different. But that's kind of the idea, was that there's a few things from Revolutions they shot during this, because I think they had the sets put together. But the idea that this film feels like it's a natural progression, singular film. It's one of the rarities of films that ends with a to be continued, that feels like it deserved to be its own movie.
Yes, and it fits into that kind of comic book formula that we always. It's a little bit ridiculous, the door of light. That's kind of funny. You keymaster, so you have a little bit of more ridiculous, but you buy into it. You buy into the whole world, and I would this translates very much like a superhero comic book. And I think if you bought the comic book, it would still work as well.
Exactly. And that's the headiness of the movie, is that they try a lot of things. And I think I'm surprised by how much of that they try actually worked.
And everything is new.
Yeah, the idea of the virus smith, the keymaster thing, the premonitions, and then also introducing the fact that Neo has a symbiance with the machines in some way. Like, he is connected to them in more ways even after he's out of the Matrix.
In a fashion that's a little ahead of its time.
But it still feels dated a little bit.
Dated, but it's ultra fashionable. Nobody has a tie like the Merovingian.
We do want
or you dress like the twins or something like that, or even the high fashion of the architect. So it's very fashionable. It's very stylized. That works.
Which, if you're a program and you're writing how you're going to look, you're going to write yourself looking pretty good.
Right. Exactly.
So I like that. Yeah, the Merovingian sequence. That is something I don't know if it should work as well as it does for me, because you have
it should work.
It's
you
so
have a program
ridiculous. That's so self-aware of the fact that he's a program and he's writing other programs, like he's writing the best tasting cake ever.
Yeah.
So that he can kind of showcase how fuller he is to the world and how much stronger he is.
But somebody written a program for him, right? He thinks he's so powerful, but somebody can delete you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a little bit play on itself. You get a little funny about you're breaking your own rules too.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about kind of what the necessary criticism of The Matrix Reloaded was, because it's funny, if you read a lot of the reviews of this film from 2003, they're in two camps. There's one camp of critics that said the story was too much and we didn't have enough action. And there was the other camp of critics that said there's too much action and the story didn't go anywhere. And I don't know how to reconcile those two, because I felt like it was a nice marrying of the two. I didn't feel like I needed. I wanted more. I wanted more of both, but I didn't need more of both.
I think you're trying to. I think people are putting their own bias into movies. They want a lot of action. Don't busy with the talking. I want a little more deep philosophy. I want less action. And I think if you take out your own bias, you enjoy it. Then what overall is, it's a great movie. It has all the ingredients for a great movie. You have your action, you have a little bit of ridiculous, you have it very well stylized, and I think that yes, it's better than the other Matrix.
Oh man,
because we're
gonna lose some subscribers today with our love for The Matrix Reloaded.
I do like The Matrix Reloaded, and I think anytime you go back to watch The Matrix, you have a lot of time building up, and it's really dreary. Here, the tone is, even though the theme is dark, but the tone is a little bit lifted up more than The Matrix is.
Yep. And from moment one, we have...
It's a little more self-aware that it's fun.
Yeah.
Right. The movie is a little more self-aware that it's fun to make movies.
Exactly, yep. Yeah. So overall, we both get this, everyone. Enjoy The Matrix Reloaded.
We do. I do.
I think it's my favorite one, and I think it's the first time I noticed these two directors as being people I wanted to follow. And for those of you guys that know me, you'll know that I adore The Matrix Revolutions. I'm a gigantic fan of Speed Racer and Cloud Atlas. I'm a defender of the incredibly cheesy and kind of terrible, but I still love it, Jupiter Ascending. I adore the Sense8 TV show. Bound, we both talked about before. Like, I am a Wachowski fanboy for life. And this was one of those first introductory films where it's like, I will follow these two directors to the ends of the earth.
Right. I agree. Have you seen Reloaded? Or are you going to go back and rewatch?
Oh,
Reloaded. There you go. Re.
There you go. Let us know in the comment section down below your thoughts on this film. Do you think we're both crazy? Do you think that this movie is just terrible and we should both just kind of, delete ourselves? Or do you agree with us and you actually think this film is worth watching? Because I really don't understand the hatred. I don't. But let us know, your thoughts on the film. And don't forget as well, as Nick mentioned before, check out the Patreon link down in the description, and you can join people like Brian Eggert, some of our patrons who get to select the films that we talk about every single time we do episodes of Kyle and Nick on Film, which we appreciate, because thinking of these movies is tough. It's hard work, guys. So
you can tell us what to do.
Exactly. So once again, my name is Kyle Goethe, and you can find all my film reviews on goatfilmreviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, where you can podcast where you can find anywhere where I talk about two independent filmmakers from the Twin Cities area about making movies.
Sounds good. We'll see you in The Matrix.